Wreck-It Ralph may just be my favorite modern animated movie. That's a fun fact about me. Now here's a fun fact about Wreck-It Ralph. And by fact, I mean entire plot of. I'm John from Observe Media, and this is a rundown of Wreck-It Ralph. We start off being introduced to the concept of all arcade game characters having lives within the games in the arcade. Inside the game Fix-It Felix Jr., Ralph talks about the downside of being a bad guy, and never feeling appreciated for what he does. He envies the hero of his game, Fix-It Felix. We find Ralph at a Bad Guys Anonymous meeting where they mostly tell him to just be true to himself. He tells them he doesn't want to be a bad guy anymore. They warn him not to go turbo. They close the meeting with a bad guy affirmation.
I am bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and if that's not bad, there's no one I'd rather be than me.
They leave the Pac-Man game where the meeting is being held, and Ralph heads home through the power strip the games are plugged into. An expositional Sonic the Hedgehog sign tells us that if you die outside your own game, you die forever. Ralph returns to his home to find everyone having a party celebrating their 30th anniversary. He comes to the party where he ends up getting in an argument with a character named Gene on his importance to the game. Gene asserts that Ralph will never get a medal, will never live in the penthouse with the rest of them, and will never be a part of the group, because he is just a bad guy who wrecks the building. Ralph tells them that he's going to win his own medal and prove them wrong. While looking through the lost and found for a medal at Tapper's, he finds a soldier from the game Hero's Duty. Finding out that the soldiers win a medal at the end of the game, he decides to take the guy's suit and go to Hero's Duty. Hero's Duty is a game where a science experiment goes very wrong. The sergeant, Tamora Calhoun, leads a squad, now including Ralph, through a horde of bugs. She tells them that the bugs become what they eat. Once the player dies, a giant beacon lights up in the sky, luring all the bugs there and destroying them. Calhoun yells at Ralph for getting the player killed. Ralph decides to climb the tower himself and get the medal. Meanwhile, in the arcade, a girl tries to play Fix-It Felix Jr., but Ralph doesn't show up. They place an out-of-order sign on the game. The citizens realize that the arcade is going to pull their plug, putting them all out of a job. Hubert, who is already out of a job from his game being unplugged, shows up and tells them that Ralph has gone turbo. Felix goes to Hero's Duty to find Ralph and runs into Calhoun. Ralph gets to the top of the tower and gets the medal, believing this will make him accepted by everyone in his game. As he leaves, he steps on one of the eggs surrounding the room, causing it to hatch and the bug to latch onto his face. He makes it to an escape ship with the bug still on his face. The ship flies out of control, and it ends up landing in the racing game Sugar Rush. The bug is thrown into some nearby candy. Ralph realizes that his medal is gone and finds it on the branch of a tree. Upon climbing the tree, he runs into Vanellope, a small girl who lives in the game.
Hey, why are your hands so freakishly big?
I don't know. Why are you so freakishly annoying?
She notices the medal, calling it a gold coin and taking it. Ralph notices her glitch out before he falls into some liquid candy. Calhoun and Felix enter Sugar Rush, with Calhoun telling him that if it isn't stopped, the bug will take over and destroy every game plugged into that power strip. Inside the game, the day is ending. King Candy kicks off an event that decides who will be in the racer list for the next day. Racers are required to insert one gold coin from their previous winnings to get onto the list for the race, and the top winners will be on that day's racing roster. Vanellope sneaks in and inserts the medal, being added to the list. Everyone is shocked by Vanellope entering due to her being a glitch. Ralph arrives to get his medal, covered in candy, but ends up getting caught by the police. Vanellope leaves in her self-made car, satisfied that she will be in the race. King Candy and the other racers are determined to keep her out. King Candy orders Ralph brought to his castle. Candy tells Ralph that the medal has now been turned into code, and no one can get it back unless they win the race. He threatens Ralph, telling him to leave and not come back to Sugar Rush. Ralph escapes into the game. He finds the other racers telling Vanellope to back out of the race. When she refuses, they destroy her car. Ralph scares the racers away. Vanellope convinces Ralph to help her make a new car to race, in exchange for her winning the race and getting his medal back. Calhoun and Felix find the ship. They discuss Ralph and Felix explains to her what going turbo means. Years ago, a game called Turbo Time was the most popular game in the arcade. It starred a character named Turbo. Eventually, another, better racing game was brought in. When everyone stopped playing Turbo Time, Turbo went into the other game to try and take over. The game was then seen as glitched out, and both games were shut down. We see the bug underground eating and turning into candy. Ralph and Vanellope break into the car selection building and design a car for Vanellope. As they sign the car, security gets called. Vanellope reveals that she doesn't know how to drive a real car as Ralph improvises to get them out of there. They go back to where Vanellope's been living, an unfinished part of the track underneath Diacola Mountain. Once there, Ralph tells her that the only way he would be able to go home and be liked would be by getting the medal. Vanellope tells him that racing would do the same thing for her. She shows him how the mint rocks explode when they drop into the liquid below. She tells him that everyone there says she's just a mistake and shouldn't exist. Ralph asks why she stays, and she tells him that glitches can't leave their games. Ralph decides to help her learn how to drive. She glitches while racing, but otherwise learns how to drive pretty well. Elsewhere, King Candy goes into the code of the game. He takes the metal code and puts it on himself to get it back for Ralph. As he leaves, it is shown that Vanellope does exist in the code, but she's disconnected from the rest of the game. Calhoun kicks Felix out of the ship when he says something that reminds her of her fiancé who got eaten by bugs. Felix goes to the castle and ends up getting locked up. Vanellope starts to have doubts, but Ralph reassures her. When she goes back inside to get something, King Candy shows up and talks to Ralph. He offers him his medal back and explains his reasoning for keeping Vanellope out of the race. He tells him that if she races, people will see her glitching and think the game is broken. The game will then be unplugged, but she won't be able to leave because she's a glitch, and she will die with the game. Vanellope returns and gives him the medal she made, just in case they don't win the race. He tries to convince her not to race. She notices that he has his medal back and has been talking to King Candy. She refuses to back out from the race and Ralph breaks the car. She tells him,
You really are a bad guy.
Ralph returns to his game where Jean tells him that everyone left and they're going to be unplugged in the morning. Ralph gets rid of his medal. Looking at the Sugar Rush game though, he realizes that Vanellope is on the side of the game, meaning she is supposed to exist inside the game. He returns to Sugar Rush and asks a candy named Sourbill about it, and he tells him that Vanellope used to be a racer until King Candy tried to delete her code, causing her to be a glitch. He tells Ralph that King Candy locked up their memories so no one remembers why he did it. But if Vanellope races and crosses the finish line, the game will reset and their memories, along with Vanellope's code, will be restored. Elsewhere, Calhoun finds a huge cavern filled with bug eggs. Ralph finds Felix and breaks him out. Felix explains what he's been through, being rejected by Calhoun, who he has feelings for, and being locked up. Ralph tells him that's how he feels all the time, and the two come to an understanding. Ralph tells him that he only wants to help Vanellope. Felix fixes the car and Ralph breaks Vanellope out of the function where she's been locked up and explains what happened to her. King Candy kicks off the race. Ralph and Vanellope arrive late to the race, but Vanellope enters. She begins moving up through the places, passing more and more racers. After a small issue with glitching, she moves into second place, right behind King Candy. Calhoun finds Felix and Ralph and tells them that the Cybug has multiplied. The bugs burst through the ground as Calhoun begins evacuating the game. In another part of the world, Vanellope passes King Candy. He crashes into her to stop her. As he begins attacking her, she causes him to glitch, revealing that he's actually Turbo.
Who are you?
I'm Turbo, the greatest racer ever! And I did not reprogram this world to let you and that Holocaust riddled warthog take it away from me!
He tries to crash her into a wall, but she uses her glitchiness to glitch through it and keep racing. A Cybug then eats King Candy. As Vanellope approaches the finish line, she gets run off the road by a bug. The bugs tear apart the finish line. Ralph and Felix take Vanellope to evacuate, but she can't leave the game. Calhoun plans to blow up the bridge, saying without a beacon they can't destroy the bugs. Ralph realizes he can create one and leaves to get to the top of Diet Cola Mountain to drop all of the mints into the soda. King Candy returns as a Cybug and tries to kill Ralph. The two fight with Candy carrying upward. You can see Calhoun and Felix unable to stop the bugs, and Vanellope getting trapped between the bugs and the exit. Ralph breaks free from King Candy as Vanellope races towards him past the bugs using her glitch.
I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than me.
He hits the mints, dropping them into the soda and falling with them as Vanellope catches him with her car and glitches out of the cave. All of the bugs, including King Candy, are drawn to the burst of light caused by the mints. They all celebrate as, oh, look at that. Felix fixes the finish line and Ralph pushes Vanellope across it. She transforms into a princess and the world is recreated due to the reset. With their memories now free, everyone remembers that Vanellope is actually a princess and ruler of Sugar Rush. Vanellope tells Ralph she is going to use her glitch as a superpower and continue being a racer instead of a princess. She tells Ralph he can stay there and be happy, but he tells her he's already happy and he has a job to do in his own game. They trade insults before he leaves, watching Vanellope being accepted by the other racers. Back in Fix-It Felix Jr., Ralph and Felix invite the characters from the other closed down games to be in a bonus level of the game, giving them a place to live. Calhoun and Felix get married, and Vanellope ends up being one of the players' most favorite racers in the game. Ralph is now more content with his life as a bad guy, proclaiming,
Turns out I don't need a medal to tell me I'm a good guy. 'Cause if that little kid likes me, how bad can I be?
And that's our rundown for Wreck-It Ralph. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments and what you think we should do next. Hit the like button below and be sure to subscribe for more videos each week. I'm John from Observe Media, and I will talk at you again later.